Lucky block. Lucky block. Tralalita tralala.
It only gets worse from here. We're going back into the 3 million documents. So far, we've mostly covered how billionaires lied about their relationship with Epstein and or got blackmailed in the drafts, eventually killing their marriage. We talked about Howard Lutnick, how he lied about meeting Epstein, although he still denies this. And we also talked about some horrible accusations against Trump and Bill Clinton, although we were clear that they are unverified. Now, some people have responded to the release, like Elon Musk, saying that no one fought harder for the full release of the Epstein files than I did. Ironically, he claims that he knew that the playbook of the
Tralalita tralala.
propagandists and legacy media is admit nothing, deny everything, and making counter accusations, saying he had never set foot on Epstein's creepy island or attended parties, despite the fact we saw last time that Elon was asking to be invited to the party. What day and night would be the wildest party on your island? Nevertheless, I think it's an interesting point. The playbook, as we get into this much darker side of the 3.5 million files, you're going to notice this trend is true, that everyone we're going to talk about, basically they admit nothing, they deny everything, and then they usually make counter accusations against other people in the files. Almost no one has faced any kind of consequences for this whole thing, leading me to wonder, why is it that it seems like really only in the rest of the world has anyone faced anything? I mean, you've got the former Prince Andrew losing his title, you've got the Slovakian National Security Advisor resigning over the Epstein links, but in America, I'm really hard-pressed to think of anyone who has actually faced any kind of accountability. I think Larry Summers stepped back voluntarily, but other than that, it's hard to think of anyone who's faced any kind of justice. In fact, arguably, Ghislaine Maxwell's life is better than it was previously since these Epstein files have dropped. And what's crazy about this is that we know that the government story is false. Remember, the FBI documents showed they had 10 co-conspirators they were investigating. We also got an old draft of an indictment where they had several co-defendants with Epstein. Now, of course, we know these were never ultimately charged. This was back in 2005, but just imagine all the way back in 2005, where these charges are from, we already had evidence that Epstein was not working alone, and like, of course he's not. But now we're going to talk a little bit about how the scheme operated. Now, to be clear, we're going to talk in a second about the laundering of Epstein's reputation, the people who protected him this whole time. But right now, I want to talk about how Epstein got some of these girls in the first place, because the Epstein files provide an interesting look behind the curtains. Obviously, we know Ghislaine Maxwell was helping, whether it be procure the girls, talk them into stuff. But now we have emails of a different side of the scheme. It says, yesterday I spoke to Daniel Syed, who Jean-Luc Brunel describes as a scout or recruiter of girls or women for Jeffrey Epstein. Attached to this incoming email from Brunel is the contact information
Chill puppy.
Syed, and then they blacked out his number and email. But digging into Jeffrey's emails with Daniel shows that he was constantly sending him links to girls. It shows Jeffrey Epstein paying Daniel 3,000 euros, which, to be clear, was the amount that was agreed to by Jean-Luc Brunel. Quote, Dominique, we will pay him 3,000 euros each month for scouting for a 6-month period. On all models we will get him, we will pay him 5% commission on their earnings. Imagine it's like baseball or it's like basketball.
La cucaracha.
I hate to use the word talent, but that's really what this guy was doing. He was going around the globe trying to find people for Jeffrey Epstein and Jean-Luc Brunel. According to one lawsuit, Epstein trafficked a Jane Doe to Jean-Luc Brunel many times. It describes their operation as this: many of the girls came from poor countries or impoverished backgrounds. He lured them in with a promise of making good money. Quote, Brunel has been a model scout for various modeling agencies for many years, and he was apparently able to get U.S. passports for young girls to work as models, eventually, of course, being sent to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, it should be noted that Jean-Luc Brunel himself died in prison by hanging, and that's while he was being accused of horrible crimes related to trafficking and minors. So this guy is not a good guy. He was part of the op, along with Daniel Syed, who was also scouting on behalf of Epstein and Jean-Luc Brunel. They had their agreement. Here's a sample of how this would work. Jeffrey Epstein asked him to take a full body shot of someone. Daniel Syed says, now she is really skinny, I will do Polaroid. Jeffrey Epstein asks for a copy of her passport, and then asks, how many tickets do you want for Woody, meaning Woody Allen? He says 2. Okay, thank you. Full body if possible. And then Jeffrey Epstein says, doesn't look too happy. Comments on her body, and then he says she is very sweet. I'll skip a few of the sordid details here. They comment about her body extensively, and then Jeffrey Epstein says, I sent a request that she want to come out to Paris on Sunday. He says, I will invite to come. And this is basically how it worked. Daniel Syed flew around the world looking for women, sending photos to Jeffrey Epstein, who then would get a copy of their passports and bring them to the States. Here's an example of this. Daniel Syed brings him a girl. They didn't redact his name, but I'm going to do it. He says, very nice, easygoing, dream to work in the United States or visit the United States working as a model in Dubai. He asks age. Daniel says 22 or 23. I forgot to ask her. She looks younger. I have her number if you want to call her. She was going to send this evening. And this happens over and over. At one point, he talks about a Thai actress. Jeffrey Epstein says he can see her on Wednesday, and then he complains that she wants to meet in a restaurant. I don't do that in New York. And then says she didn't even respond. Not nice. The point is, a lot of these girls were looking to come to the United States for one reason or another, for some kind of dream. They would ask for passports or visas, and then ultimately get sent here by this network of people who would later be accused of trafficking or other abuses. Now, to be clear, there have not been charges against Daniel Syed, and the government, remember, says they have no evidence to go even predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. So it's a little bit bizarre to be reading about this scouting operation for Jeffrey Epstein, the way he recruited girls, and then be told, yeah, nothing to see here. Yeah, one of the scouts was like this, like, who himself in jail. But yeah, no, there's no one else here, even though there's definitely guys floating around. Even though we literally have redacted defendants in our old draft of an indictment. We have nothing to do. We can't possibly imagine doing anything. And that brings me to one of the frustrating parts of these whole files is the redactions. I mean, I know I've been over this, but it's a different thing. In the past, the files were sort of overly redacted to protect people. The problem this time is not only are a lot of people still being protected, like literally the names of the people they were going to charge, you couldn't argue those are victims, but the work was just done so sloppy that oftentimes you'll find that the DOJ has uploaded 2 documents that are functionally identical, and they redacted one but not the other, letting you see what's ultimately
Tortughini
behind
Dragon
the mask,
Frutini.
which is dumb because sometimes the thing they're redacting is Jeffrey Epstein's name, or other times it's somebody who clearly is not a victim, because then you see the non-redacted copy and you're like, yeah, that's clearly not a victim. So it's a little strange what they seem to have done here. Let me give you a for instance. So we have this message from somebody whose name is blacked out. And we see participants, and then we see Jeffrey Epstein is involved, right? And it says, we need to work around your 38. We need to push back on the lies. Then crush the pedo trafficking narrative and rebuild your image as a philanthropist. Now, I want to know who's doing that. Who's trying to rebuild Jeffrey Epstein's image, right? Well, we go ahead, we scroll down, and we see that Jeffrey Epstein sends something. He says, in any bar where drinking age is 18, and you see the participant is once again blacked out. But underneath it, in a separate file, we see Steve Bannon, a famous political figure, is in here, and he's saying the same thing. He says, first, we need to push back on the lies, then crush the trafficking narrative, then rebuild your image as a philanthropist. Guys, why did you censor out his name? Or like, why was that censored at all? I don't understand. And I certainly don't understand why Jeffrey Epstein's name in this one is censored. So Jeffrey's not censored in this one, but Bannon is, and then Bannon's not censored in this one, and Epstein is. And sometimes this creates the bizarre impression that they are censoring for victim names or for some like kind of victim status or for some reason. And then you see the other file and you're like, wait, why did you do this? It's just very poorly done throughout. That's just something I wanted to comment on, is not only did they once again not fully redact things because they were sloppy, but also like victims' names got stuck in this, like girls' names appear sometimes, and like I'm not sure, are they supposed to be redacted? Because they're redacted over here, they're not over here. I can kind of figure out who it is. It's just kind of a mess. I needed to point that out. You know, other times we have things like this, like Brock Pierce, a co-founder of Tether, also known as the biggest stable coin in the world. He sent a message to Jeffrey Epstein with the subject line Anastasia, and then it's just a bunch of redacted stuff with a few untitled JPEGs in here. And so, you know, you're thinking to yourself, what is this? Is he sending some illicit media? Like, what is this? Well, then we have this page where it wasn't redacted. I put that little dark square that I didn't know if this should have been redacted or not. It's like a bunch of JPEGs. Now, does that contain victims? Is Brock Pierce sending photos of victims? I don't know because of the way the government did this. But underneath, it says, the Ukraine is now my favorite country, smiley face, Brock Pierce, with the subject line Anastasia. I don't know what to make of that. I'm just saying the redactions, like the way they did this is not good. But now let's return to Steve Bannon and his we're going to crush the trafficking narrative. Because this guy, oh boy, has been revealed in the files to being like Jeffrey's right-hand PR man. I mean, this guy was filming basically a documentary about Jeffrey Epstein in order to rehabilitate his image. And some of it has actually leaked to the public. It's been interesting to watch how that's been received. But the funny thing is that originally Jeffrey Epstein's plan was to just do a YouTube video, like an apology, like a old school 2016, turn on the camera for authenticity. You know, he says, do you think I can do my own video interview and upload it to YouTube? No sandbagging, interview format, or like a diary piece.
Los Tortus.
Steve Bannon says if you do an interview, it can't be like Johnny does a YouTube. It has to be amazingly professional and perfectly cut. Then Jeffrey Epstein responds, Woody Allen, because they were close, said he would help edit. Not sure how to stage, what points to make. But better than trying to do an interview that I have no experience doing. Goal is to humanize the monster. Anything written carries little weight, to which Steve Bannon replies, yes, Jeffrey Epstein, should it be an interview format, interviewed by me? They start talking about, like, how do we do this? Humor, apology, how did I get rich? Question mark, topic. Their brainstorming, how do we trick the public into seeing me as more than a monster? Now, funny enough, right before this, Jeffrey Epstein asks about a dinner with Woody, and then he says, or too many peppers in one place. And you gotta love the self-awareness there. Now, I don't know what he meant by that. To be clear, I'm not making that accusation against Woody Allen. We'll talk about him in a second. That's Jeffrey Epstein saying that. I think what's interesting to point out, though, is how all these rich and powerful people are circling the wagons to try to protect Jeffrey Epstein's reputation, right? This is a guy who at this point has been known for years to have pled guilty to these 2008 charges. This was an open secret. And so Steve Bannon goes along though anyways, and he films this documentary. Now what's interesting is he starts talking about the documentary and he starts saying, I'm watching our second hour now. Guys were blown away. I didn't think it was strong at the time, but I was wrong. The huge part about threat of AI versus reality, threat of climate change. And this is where the notes start going back and forth of how can we get you to think of other things? So part of the conceit of this big interview of Jeffrey Epstein was to try to humanize him and actually present him as this genius, everyman, quirky guy
Talpa di
with few flaws, right? They knew they couldn't run away from the crimes. To quote, in Bannon's words, yes, 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 of course, but we must counter rapists who traffics in female children to be by world's most powerful, richest men. That can't be redeemed. Can't redeem the unredeemable. You are a lot of things, which we'll show, but you are not that. Bannon is aware that, like, they can't fully embrace the Epstein thing. They have to kind of make it about more than that. And if you see the YouTube clip going around, that's what that is. And it's been so interesting to watch the reaction because you see, even for people who've been prepped with the idea that this is basically propaganda, some of them still fall for it. They post things like, you know, oh, bro is casually confirming the world's conspiracies because he's talking about 2008. But guys, that's the whole deception. They're like trying to be like, hey, this guy, this horrible monster, he's going to tell you the secrets of the inside club. So you think more, that's the whole thing. That's how they're getting away with this. It's not some kind of, oh, he happened to want to talk about this. This is all premeditated. This has gone through revisions. They even called Jeffrey Epstein the smartest guy in the room.
Look, you're the smartest guy in the room, right? You know that.
It's honestly ridiculous anyone believes the false conceit of, you're obviously the smartest man in the room. You could tell us the world's secrets. I mean, this guy, honestly, he talks about some of his engagements, like with the Rockefeller board, and he tries to say that owning a calculator is why he got that.
It was very advanced in those days to have a Texas Instrument calculator, where it could, by putting in the numbers, it would multiply for you, do square roots. And that was the first thing. Everyone who had a calculator was already advanced on Wall Street. The most important parts of business were really now going to calculations. Places like Rockefeller needed someone to say, look, we're entering a different world where numbers and the numbers of companies, portfolio management was going to be balanced, it was going to be statistical. Jeffrey, could you come on the board, potentially sit on the finance committee?
So we're honestly supposed to believe that Jeffrey Epstein got into this prestigious Rockefeller board because he had a calculator, but also that he's the smartest guy in the room, the smartest man on Wall Street. And let's not talk about those horrific crimes he committed because, you know, he's not really such a bad guy after all. But it wasn't just
Svinina
Steve
Bombardino.
Bannon that
Ta
was
ta 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 sa
trying to
Rubini Pizzanini.
humanize
Rubini Pizzanini.
humanize Epstein. It was also Richard Branson, the famous billionaire. He was caught emailing Jeffrey Epstein saying, Dear Jeffrey, it was really nice seeing you yesterday. The boys in water sports can't stop speaking about it. Anytime you are in the area, would love to see you as long as you bring your harem. I don't know, that's not that ambiguous, guys. I think we can imagine what that means. But anyways, he says, one, I think if Bill Gates was willing to say that you've been a brilliant advisor to him, that you slipped up many years ago by sleeping with a 17-and-a-half-year-old and were punished for it, that you've more than learned your lesson and have done nothing that's against the law since. And yes, as a single man, you have a pinche free women, but there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, something along those lines. He's giving him PR advice. How to get your reputation back. Hey, Jeffrey, privately, I love you. You can come back anytime with your harem. Jeffrey Epstein responds, nice seeing you. Thanks for your hospitality. I appreciate your public relations thoughts. Now, according to the New York Times, a Branson representative said the two had a business meeting and stressed the women were adults and had not attended the meeting. All above board. That's what everyone says, by the way. Remember what Elon Musk said, right? That's the playbook. Admit nothing, deny everything. Speaking of, remember Howard Lutnick, who we showed on video saying that he had never seen Epstein since 2005?
So I was never in the room with him. socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.
Although also calling him the greatest blackmailer ever.
This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever.
Well, also according to the Times, Lutnick said he spent 0 time with him, even though there are emails basically to the contrary, where Epstein is saying, nice seeing you after the conviction. I mean, these people, not only are they lying, they won't even admit when they've been caught lying. But now let's talk about Prince Andrew, too, who was caught lying over a woman at some kind of a party. I mean, just not a good, this is not doing you any favors, you know. I know Prince Andrew soon will probably be on the comeback tour. It's going to be a bunch of highly paid PR execs. Maybe Steve Bannon can jump in, shoot another 5-hour podcast trying to rehabilitate him. Like, Prince Andrew, what's the secret behind the royal family?
Look, you're the smartest guy in the room.
But again, has he admitted anything? Has he denied everything? Now we should also probably talk about
Santa hotspot.
Which, in hindsight, maybe we should have suspected something. But either way, he also sends some buddy Jeffrey Epstein. He says, "I watched the horrible way you've been treated by the press and public." It's painful to say, but I think the best way to proceed is to ignore it. And the vultures dearly want is a public response, which then provides a public opening. In general, I think it's best not to react unless directly questioned, particularly in the current mood. That's the best advice I can think of. No. Now, he sends that to Matthew Hiltzik of Hiltzik Strategies, who is a also famous PR guy, I guess, trying to help Epstein, I assume, who responds, I think that is wise. Now, later talking with Bannon, Epstein loops in Hiltzik again. He says, Matt Hiltzik thought your idea was epic. Hypocrisy of the liberal left. And he says, yep, he would confidentially like to sit and help if you like. This is Matthew Hiltzik. You know, a lot of powerful people basically were bending over backwards, left, right, center, trying to rehabilitate this guy's image. And the question is, why? Why were all these guys so interested in their precious Jeffrey Epstein if they had no involvement? I mean, that's the part I can't figure out it, because all of them deny it. All of them don't admit anything. And so what exactly is the problem? But now it's time to talk about Elon Musk's brother, Kimball Musk. He was also in the files. Jeffrey was copied on an email talking about Kimball's 40th birthday, where the password to the secret party was riot. And then in all caps, Boris, the sender of this email, says, I am not joking about the password. This was in 2012 in September. Now that's important because a little bit later, Kimball Musk is emailing Boris Nikolic and Jeffrey Epstein, and he's talking to them about being connected with some redacted name and saying, I believe you both played a role, whatever that means. Now, whether this was at the party or, you know, right after their meeting in October, I don't know. But what's interesting is Boris responds and says, Kimball, just FYI, you better be nice to redacted. Jeffrey goes crazy when someone mistreats his girls/friends, so better be very nice to her. Kimball Musk responds, message received, wide and clear. Then he says, seriously, I'm very happy with my time so far with Jennifer. She's great. Now, again, was that supposed to be a redacted name we just read? Like, I don't know. They've been redacting it in earlier emails, and all of a sudden you just get Jennifer. I can't really figure that out. But what I can figure out is that a little while later, a few days later, Jeffrey Epstein gets an email. Now, we know Kimball credits the meetup and says Boris and Epstein were responsible in some way for this. But now Jeffrey Epstein's being emailed about
Yes, my
Jen's
examen.
schedule. Is that Jennifer? I mean, it seems like it because Jen's schedule for the rest of the year, and it seems like the assistant has stopped Jen's response because she says, and then starts saying, you know, this, Epstein goes to New York. She says the 29th.
Yes, my examen.
Free, Kimball to New York. Then she says, Kimball, Jen, London. Kimball, Jen, London to Morocco, question mark. Then she has a break, and then it's Jen, Kimball, St. Bart's. Assuming we're not sick of each other by the end of November. Now, I can't figure out why is she running this schedule about when she's hanging out with Kimball, who Jeffrey set her up with. Like, why is she running this by Elon Musk? To be clear, I don't know. You know, there could be, I guess, innocent explanations for this. Maybe, I don't know. But all I see are constant, powerful people either being intro to girls, talking about the harem, talking about beautiful ladies, and the FBI, they can't figure it out. They have no evidence to even investigate. third parties. Why? I guess because they're rich and powerful. Around the world, we're seeing resignations. We're seeing people lose their status. But here in the United States, we've got like multiple presidents in the files. We've got the world's richest man in the files, several of the world's richest men in the files, and we just can't drum up any kind of evidence. It's just incredible to me. Now, I also want to talk about another rich and powerful person, and that is Peter Attia. He's a podcast bro. He's a longevity expert, and actually, funny enough, I read his book, and that's going to come into play here in a second because, oh boy, did I get some additional context. But let's start here with something that Peter Attia sent Jeffrey Epstein. He says, subject, got a fresh shipment. And then Epstein responds, me too, and there's a completely redacted image. Is that a girl? Is it bad redacted? We don't know, although we'll find out in a second because later Peter responded to this. But Peter says, please tell me you found that picture online. Jeffrey responds, got a fresh shipment. Afraid not. Peter responds, you know the biggest problem with becoming friends with you. The life you lead is so outrageous, yet I can't tell a soul. Why, Peter? Why can't you tell a soul? Why don't you tell us now? Now that it's all out in the open, why don't you tell us why you can't tell a soul the secrets or the life that Epstein leads? And then we get another redacted photo, right? And then some more images. And Peter says, please tell me that's how people actually are. And Jeffrey says, you can see the gym in the middle, just me and 4. And Peter says, I think you might have a more interesting life than the Dos Equis guy. Is this off the coast of France? No, it's my island in the Caribbean near St. Thomas. Go to Google Earth and type in Little St. James. Beautiful. Isn't that nice? Behind closed doors, it's beautiful. In public, we'll hear about what a monster this guy is, right? But behind closed doors, nobody's watching. There's some other stuff Peter Attia said, which I'm not going to get into. I don't think it's very, appropriate for medical professionals to be saying such things. But, this wasn't all business, right? This wasn't just doctor-patient kind of stuff. There's a lot of guy talk, a lot of banter between the fellas about ladies. And maybe that's why Peter Attia said that hopefully Jeffrey Epstein is in town when I'm back in 2 weeks. I go into Jeffrey Epstein withdrawal when I don't see him. So guys, these two were close. I mean, apparently so close that, Peter Attia goes into withdrawal when he doesn't see him. Peter Attia says, are you on island? Jeffrey Epstein says, P Beach, probably Palm Beach. And he says, what do you do when you get there? Jeffrey Epstein, guess. Peter Attia, besides that, I mean, they're not even trying to hide it. It's barely closed at this point. What do you do? Yes. Well, besides that, Jeffrey, we know what you do, right? So it's so funny that the FBI's like, we don't know. We can't tell what's out there. We have no evidence, right? No evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties and then proceed to dump on us a ton of evidence. At least to investigate, right? I'm not saying these people are guilty. Obviously, all of them deny, don't admit, blame other people, say other people are responsible for that. Taken as given. I'm not accusing anyone here. I'm just saying, seems like we got a few leads here, fellas. Some people to look at. Now, I want to address the fact that Peter Attia has actually responded to this whole debacle. He says the following email is what I sent my team last night. I sent a similar version to my patients as well. You put your trust, your credibility, your hard work. I take responsibility seriously. Honest account of what did and did not happen. I apologize. Did not get this out sooner. I wanted to be thorough. He says, I was not involved in any criminal activity. My interactions had nothing to do with his abuse or exploitation of anyone. I was never on his plane, never on his island, never present at any parties. That said, I apologize for regret putting myself in a position where emails, some of them embarrassing, tasteless, and indefensible, are now public. So it's this apology. He addresses some of the things, and he says that some of it's just banter, right? Like I said, it's just guy talk, whatever that means. He claims that his got a fresh shipment was in reference to a photograph of Bobby Foreman, and then Jeffrey responded with a photograph of an adult woman. I responded with crude, tasteless banter. He says one line in that exchange about his life being outrageous and me not being able to tell anyone is being interpreted as awareness of wrongdoing. That's not how I meant it at all. What I was referring to poorly and flippantly was the discretion commanded by those socials and professional circles. The idea you don't talk about who you meet. I don't know, Peter. Revisionist history. A little bit. First, to me, as I'm viewing this, third hand, right? just from the outsider perspective. Now, Peter says he did ask Jeffrey about his 2008 conviction, because all this happened afterwards, right? He characterized it as prostitution-related charges. In 2018, I learned that this was grossly minimized. I was incredibly naive to believe him, and then later explains that in 2018, November, he read the Miami Herald investigative article, told him he needed to accept responsibility for what he did, and said he even asked Epstein to provide therapy to Epstein's victims. There are some more emails between Peter and Tia that we need to read, because remember that he said he read this 2018 article from the Miami Herald. I believe it's this one by Julia K. Brown in November 28th. It's about Jeffrey Epstein assembling a large cult-like network of underage girls. But in December, Peter Attia says, home is very good, work stressful, making some changes. He asks him, what's the fallout from the recent story? Apparently talking about the Miami Herald. Now, maybe I just didn't see the emails, that where he was demanding accountability. I don't know what that's about, but Jeffrey Epstein says, same as usual, just tougher. Peter Attia says, legally, any change. Jeffrey Epstein, 0. So, I don't know. Maybe this whole you gotta provide therapy to, these victims happened. I haven't seen it yet. I definitely would. But it's just kind of shocking. I just kind of don't buy it. Like the whole, is there any change legally? That more sounds like you're covering yourself. I mean, just to be honest. But maybe I could look past all of that if not for the thing we're about to see, which just in my mind is maybe the worst thing I've seen in the files. Not for its, explicitness, the amount of simping that people did for Jeffrey Epstein. Now they all say, oh, it was a personal mistake, blah, blah, blah. I regret it. I didn't look into it enough. But the level is just, you've never seen anything like it. So remember I said I read a book by Peter Attia. It was called Outlive, and he's
Nubini Pizzanini. Nubini Pizzanini.
Longevity. So he writes it, and I picked it up because at the rate we're
Nubini
getting rid of these crimes, I need to live forever in order to try to stop some of these scams. But as I pick up this book, and one of the things in the book is Peter Attia kind of reflecting internally about how he's kind of been a bit, and I'm paraphrasing here, but a bit of a psycho in his life, and he needed to focus on family stuff. And so he it's almost a confessional of some embarrassing things in his life. And honestly, it comes off as very vulnerable, very self-reflective. He's this doctor telling other people what to do, but he's not a very good patient. And one of the stories is awful. I won't go too much into it, but basically, his son had this horrible medical emergency. It's described in this book like this. A few months ago, Tuesday, July 11th, 2017, that date is important. At 5:45 to be exact, I received a call from Jill, my wife. She was in an ambulance with our infant son. Now again, I'm not going to get into the details here because, it's tragic and I'm not trying to bring that into it. What is relevant is that Peter Attia talks about how he stayed in New York and didn't show up because he was, quote, busy with his important work. Even today, just thinking about what happened, I feel nauseous about my behavior. I can't believe I did that to my family. Now, at the time I read that, and I was like, well, it's at least as good.
Black hole goat.
It's horrible, but, yeah, you were a bit of a psycho. But what's crazy? Now we find out some of the important work. It's a little unclear, but some of the important work may have been Jeffrey Epstein, which is just, it's so dark to imagine. Remember, he says July 11th, 2017 is when this all happened. And then he says he did not come home to engage in the following day. So July 11th, 2017. 2 days after this happens, he's talking to Jeffrey Epstein. And they seem to be coordinating. I'm not sure what time. Jeffrey Epstein, 9:30. Peter Attia responds, sure, I can come earlier. Also, if you have a hard stop at 10, let me know. You're hanging out with Jeffrey? I don't even know what to say. This is out of pocket. There's no explanation for this. I didn't see this in the response from Peter. Maybe he thinks he addressed it because he already admitted that was scummy. But that is just, there's a reason that didn't make it in the book, is what I'm trying to say. I didn't see that in the book when I read it. I was actually, one of the things I needed to do, my important work was seeing or talking to Jeffrey Epstein. Isn't that weird? That's the simping that I'm talking about. These people love this guy, or Or that's how it seems to me. Like, what are all these rich and powerful people doing, protecting him, missing emergencies for Jeffrey, fawning over Jeffrey, asking for Jeffrey's harem, saying their biggest problem is the life they lead is so outrageous they can't tell a soul? I mean, what is going on here? And is it true they all didn't know, right? Because, I'm reading these documents, and it's hard to say who exactly knew what, when. But I don't believe, remember, they're all denying it, I don't believe nobody knew, right? Clearly, some people knew what was going on, and there's all this kind of coded language in the files where they talk about this stuff almost in like a nudge-nudge kind of way. I mean, here's some Woody Allen stuff. He was in the files. He says he's getting check to me. It looks very bad because then it looks like a gift to me. He said that to Epstein. He says, I don't want to be one of your women, or should I say, girls. And what's that? How do
Bananita dolfinita.
Come on, guys. When he says, I would be much more expensive than your girls.
Bananita dolfinita.
Jeffrey responds, yes, the price to pay would be
Los chicleteras.
friendship. Then Jeffrey says, as long as I follow orders, smiley face. Woody Allen sends a message saying Woody says the exact same thing, but dirtier away. Or way. Jeffrey responds, what did he say? Woody Allen, are you kidding? I can't put it in writing. I mean, no evidence? Got no evidence. How? Come on. I think I see a little bit of evidence. I'm squinting, but I think I can see a little bit of evidence. I mean, guys, like Jeffrey Epstein right here, where he's talking to a guy, he says, Paris with Woody, and the person responds,
Glorbo fruttodrillo.
file convention. And Jeffrey says, I think file is the plural. I mean, no evidence. I mean, is that no evidence? That's nothing. We don't even want to question these people. There's no investigations going on. So, yeah, it's honestly really sad to see how, look, I'm not saying people around the world are crazy, but a few people are resigning, thank goodness. A few people are at least facing a little bit of scrutiny, but here Elon Musk lays out the playbook, apparently, for our guys. We admit nothing, we deny everything, and we blame others. We just push the spotlight onto other people. And unfortunately, that's what you've seen the whole time from all the people in the files. All of them say, oh, I was so happy these files came out. It's about shining accountability and justice for the victims, but I had nothing to do with it. Okay, so then where's the justice for the victims? So nobody, all of you say somebody else had something to do with it, but everybody says nobody had anything to do with it. The FBI says they don't have any other, investigations, any other kind of leads, despite the fact we have one of the procurers of the women just walking free, apparently, like no charges against him. Have we investigated him? I mean, it's just shocking how much the Epstein files show the powerful, how they protect their own, how so many of them knew what was going on, to the extent they found out later, a lot of them tried to protect Epstein, like literally make PR campaigns for his reputation. And this is a dark look at the state of the world, honestly, because Epstein happened a while ago, but the reason everyone cares is because there's other Epsteins around, right? There's other people evading accountability all the time. There's other people that this band of billionaires and power brokers and PR people, even lawmakers, they circle the wagons and protect their own to the point you can never get accountability for anything. So anyway, that's it. It's a hard look at the Epstein files, but it's one we needed to do. But I want to make the disclaimer once again that, look, I've tried to read people's individual denials where I could, but you should just assume everyone that we are talking about firmly denies any kind of criminal wrongdoing. They deny anything untowards about any kind of minors. And given the fact that our government doesn't seem to want to investigate anyone, I would just assume everybody here is completely clear. And so I want to get all those caveats in here because we are talking about some very powerful people with enormous means. And I don't want to be seen as I'm saying stuff. I'm reading the files. I'm giving my personal opinion. But ultimately, this is an indictment of our FBI and the people in power. And that's what I think the Epstein files have really shown us. This has been a long road. Can you believe it all started over here? And we have come all this way with all these files coming out. And it seems like the question is on the table. Are there going to be consequences?
Is there any chance that any of these individuals who partied with Epstein and engaged in, relations with minors will be prosecuted.
Well,
Any
look,
chance?
I'll never say no, and we will always investigate any evidence of misconduct. But as you know, it is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein, and so as horrible as it's not a crime to email with Mr. Epstein. And some of these men may have done horrible things, and if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But it's also the kind of thing that the American people need to understand, that it isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. It isn't a crime.
The photos could speak. Some of them look pretty bad.
That's right. And unfortunately, photos can't speak.
You can't afford to ignore this. Donald Trump is now openly calling for Republicans to steal power from the states and, in his words, take over the election. Yesterday, he called into the Dan Bongino show and he said,
"Look, I took over a border where 25 million people came into our country, many of them murderers. If we don't get them out, Republicans will never win. In other words, these people were brought to our country to vote, and they vote illegally. And amazing that the Republicans aren't tougher on it. The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting."
Now, one, I know I kind of just hit you in the face with that clip. I want to say welcome back to the Philip Franco Show. It is Tuesday, February 3rd, and welcome back to another Daily Dive into the news. But that clip, it's crazy. Just first of all, the Constitution gives states broad discretion to determine how they run their elections, not the federal government. Second of all, 25 million undocumented immigrants didn't come here under Biden. That's just a lie. We don't have great data past 2023, but Pew estimates that around 3.5 million had come in by that point, putting the total population at around 14 million.
Piccione macchina.
Non-citizens do not
Piccione
vote.
macchina.
Putting aside the few extremely rare edge cases that are so negligible that you can basically just say non-citizens don't vote. In fact, Trump's own administration's probe into supposed voter fraud has so far turned up virtually nothing. Reportedly, he had his DHS check nearly 50 million voter registrations, and only about 10,000, or 0.02%, were referred for further investigation of non-citizenship. And even assuming that that number is accurate, which it may not be since officials say that, some people were mistakenly flagged, that's only registered voters. It says nothing about how many actually voted. But of course, none of this is new. Election integrity has never been in doubt from anyone but Donald Trump and the people he suckered into his delusional fantasy world. And so it seems like everyone with a shred of sanity left who care about honesty over loyalty, they're looking toward the midterms this year and just chewing their fingernails off. Right? And as far as the 15 places or states where Trump says that he wants to take over voting, he didn't name them, but he mentioned a couple later on, including Minnesota.
It's a mess. There's something in the water up there, and I love the state. I won the state 3 times, but I got no credit for it. I won that state 3 times, but a rigged state, really rigged badly with the Somalians and the theft.
Also, you had him talking about Georgia, where Trump's FBI seized truckloads of 2020 ballots, voter rolls, and scanner images from Fulton County last week.
Now you're going to see something in Georgia where they were able to get, with a court order, the ballots. You're going to see some interesting things come out.
And Trump is right that we have seen some interesting things coming out, though not what he's thinking. Instead, I'm talking about how we saw, of all people, Tulsi Gabbard on site during the FBI raid. Right? And that's really weird and concerning. I mean, we still don't have a very clear answer as to why the Director of National Intelligence, with zero domestic law enforcement authority, would be there. Her job description does not, or rather should not, include on-site involvement in criminal investigative work. Though when lawmakers, they pressed her about it, she replied in the letter yesterday that it does actually fall under her purview because intelligence suggests election systems are vulnerable to foreign interference. But that also still doesn't explain why she attended a different agency's raid in Fulton County in particular. In fact, she admitted that she hadn't even seen the search warrant there. Right? And Gabbard actually added that she was there because Trump personally asked her to be. And as far as why Trump made that request, one source told the Times that he wanted her to assist with the FBI's investigation. But now you actually have The Guardian reporting that Gabbard's running her own investigation into the 2020 election, separate from the DOJ investigation, and she's doing it with Trump's approval. And reportedly, she's been at it for months, briefing Trump and senior White House advisors every few weeks on her progress. And with that, you have a source saying she actually wasn't looking at Fulton County until the FBI raid, and other officials saying that the White House has given her far-ranging authority to hunt for voter fraud in multiple states. And so apparently you've got Tulsi Gabbard cooking up something much bigger than Fulton County, but even there, her involvement was more than just an observer. Because the day after the raid, she met with some of the FBI agents, called Trump on her cell phone, and put him on speaker so that he could talk to them, all of which she admits. And you've got sources telling the Times that Trump asked them questions and praised and thanked them for their work on the probe. One official even adding that the call was fairly short, perhaps just a minute long, and compared the conversation to a pep rally or a coach giving an encouraging halftime speech to his players. Now, that same official also claimed that Trump gave no substantive direction to the agents, which is also something that Gabbard told lawmakers, and she added that he didn't even ask them questions. Regardless of that, the fact that this call even took place is kind of nuts on its own. Department or FBI official, Mr. Trump spoke directly to the frontline agents doing politically sensitive investigation. He has a large force in the state. Of course, we can't forget the comment that Trump made at Davos.
People will soon be prosecuted for what they did. News, but it should be.
And actually, speaking of prosecutions, we can expect to see some fireworks
Los
in the coming
Tortus.
months from Trump's so-called weaponization working group. That's this DOJ task force that Pam Bondi whipped up last year, and she says that it's meant to investigate Biden's weaponization of the DOJ against Trump, but critics say that it's actually meant to weaponize the DOJ against Trump's enemies. You know, either way, it's been almost a year now, and the group has nothing to show for itself, at least not publicly. So according to CNN, in recent weeks, Trump's been pressuring Justice Department officials for results in these and other investigations, and recently admonished a group of them for failing to deliver on cases that he wanted brought. And so now this weaponization working group is reportedly expected to start meeting daily with the goal of producing results in the next 2 months. And reportedly, the group's head until now, Ed Martin, he's been pushing some, and reportedly keeping his title as the department's pardon attorney, but getting marginalized in his other role as the group's head because senior department officials saw him as ineffective in pursuing cases that Trump wants acted upon immediately. Right, Martin has also reportedly long rubbed Deputy AG Todd Blanche the wrong way. Right, reportedly, Blanche took issue with his lack of legal experience and got especially annoyed when Martin would go around him, sometimes to the president himself, sometimes to complain that the department's leadership wasn't moving quickly enough to hold Trump's enemies to account. But really, whatever the case, right, with new leadership at the helm and the Orange Man demanding action, this weaponization group, it's going to be something to keep an eye on this year, especially since Trump's DOJ has charged or investigated just so many people already. Right, you've got John Bolton, Tish James, James Comey, Jerome Powell, Lisa Cook, Don Lemon, all those Democrats who reminded the military not to obey unlawful orders, and on and on and on. But also, yo, like, Trump isn't just weaponizing the DOJ, they're also doing it with DHS, and we just learned about a new terrifying method that they're using to do so. It is called an administrative subpoena, and the Department of Homeland Security has been using them to target American citizens. And specifically, what you're seeing are protesters, students, and those that vocally oppose them. And, you know, we've talked fairly extensively recently about administrative warrants, but an administrative subpoena, it's something different. It is a request for personal information from an establishment like a school, workplace, or even social media platform about specific individuals. Very notably, this type of subpoena does not require a judge or even grand jury's approval. In fact, you've got the Washington Post reporting that officials throughout the Department of Homeland Security, including mid-level ones, have been given authority to approve them. And that's why you've got privacy and civil rights groups accusing Trump's DHS of using this authority to strangle free speech. We've now seen them used to get information about a Columbia student who participated in a pro-Palestine protest, to attempt to identify Instagram users who protested about ICE raids in LA, and even try to get information about the thousands of Minnesota healthcare workers protesting ICE. So also, in some cases, it's smaller scale. You had the Washington Post, for example, interviewing a man named John who had an administrative subpoena served on his Google account. And apparently just for sending an email to a prosecutor threatening to deport an immigrant back to Afghanistan where his life would be in danger. And that email reportedly asked the prosecutor not to play Russian roulette with the immigrant's life, and added, err on the side of caution. There's a reason the US government, along with many other governments, don't recognize the Taliban. Apply principles of common sense and decency. And barely 5 hours later, he got subpoenaed. Now, with all this, according to supporters, administrative subpoenas are critical tools that allow investigators to skip the lengthy judicial process when searching for information that could, for example, help track down a pedophile or drug trafficker. But then you have a lot of experts saying that the lack of oversight and general secrecy, it threatens core democratic principles. And so, for example, you have one law professor saying, this vast administrative power has remained opaque even to those who receive these subpoenas and invisible to those it affects most. And with that, you have an attorney for the ACLU adding, there's no oversight ahead of time. There's no ramifications for having abused it after the fact.
Cicleteira no el
Recently, in
teira.
a world where unmentioned is important to administration, this type of legal process is ripe for that kind of abuse. However, legal experts are also saying that even if the courts decide that DHS is abusing its authority with these subpoenas, it's unlikely that they'll actually be forced to stop using them. So real consequences or real changes are going to be off the tape, but I will say that
Cicleteira no el
the
teira.
State Department, right? Because the State Department, with Secretary Marco Rubio, have now been sued by a coalition of immigration groups, attorneys, and U.S. citizens. And specifically, they're suing over a decision announced last month to suspend immigrant visa approvals for nationals of 75 different countries. At the time that it was announced last month, the reason was apparently to, quote, ensure that new immigrants will not extract wealth from the American people. Because according to the Trump State Department, immigrants from those 75 countries take welfare from the American people at unacceptable rates. In their announcement, adding, "We are working to ensure the generosity of the American people will no longer be abused." And the countries in question included Somalia, Haiti, Iran, and Cuba, which is notably where Secretary Marco Rubio's own family is from. However, the lawsuit against the State Department was quick to dismiss the State Department's excuses, calling it a demonstrably false claim and adding, "Many applicants for immigrant visas are not eligible for cash welfare and remain ineligible for years." Also, the suit went on to say that the suspension amounts to a ban on nearly half of all immigrant visa applications. So they're looking to get the decision overturned. But also, that's not the only case against Trump's immigration crusade that we're seeing play out in court. In fact, a judge just blocked the Trump administration's plans to strip the special protection status from Haitian immigrants. More than 350,000 Haitian immigrants live and work in the U.S. under what's called a temporary protected status, or TPS. TPS, it's given to those whose home countries are unsafe to return for reasons like a natural disaster or political instability. And in Haiti's case, it was activated in 2010 after a catastrophic earthquake, and it's been extended multiple times because of gang violence. That status, it was set to end today at the direction of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, but then at the 11th hour, a federal judge blocked the Trump administration from ending the TPS, and she just slammed Kristi Noem specifically, or just straight up saying that Noem didn't have the authority to make this decision, and adding that Noem's reasoning, quote, "focuses on Haitians outside the United States or here illegally, ignoring that Haitian TPS holders already live here and legally so." Also adding that Noem, quote, "ignores altogether the billions that Haitian TPS holders contribute to the economy." So with all that, obviously, Team Trump not happy about this ruling, and you had Tricia McLaughlin, a DHS spokesperson, saying, "Temporary means temporary, and the final word will not be from an activist judge legislating from the bench." In the meantime, plaintiffs and countless other Haitian immigrants, they're taking this as a win, despite the near guarantee that this case is far from over. And so with that, you had one of the attorneys for the plaintiffs saying, "Although the government will probably appeal, today's ruling allows Haitian TPS holders to breathe a sigh of relief, even if only a small one. We look forward to defending the court's ruling on appeal." But then also, while we're talking about her, while she's, getting slammed by a judge, Kristi Noem, she's actually making concessions with Democrats about ICE agents, albeit, I'll say, very small ones. Right? Specifically, she just announced that all ICE agents in Minneapolis will immediately begin wearing body cameras. And that policy, they say, will spread nationwide as soon as the funding is available. Though also, I'll say, Noem herself, she can hardly take credit here. The idea was actually proposed by Republican Senator Ron Johnson as a concession that would keep ICE funded as Democrats block financing, or at least they were blocking financing while I was reporting today. The House passed the bill to end the partial government shutdown, sending it to Trump's desk. And that is, this minor change. It definitely doesn't, do much to improve ICE's reputation at home or abroad. Right on that business and political line, we're seeing companies in countries like France and Canada either distancing themselves from or cutting ties with U.S. entities over ICE. And on more of a social and personal side of things, you have the likes of podcasters like Andrew Schultz getting a ton of attention for saying that he hit his breaking point after watching how the administration responded to the Alex Preddy shooting.
Like, I didn't think what's happening right now with ICE could happen in America. I genuinely did not think that was possible. I thought our institution, I thought the Constitution would hold up. Like, it all of a sudden becomes not like liberal catastrophic thinking. It starts to become very reasonable, nuanced criticism of the administration. They have just made the most far left critiques of the Trump administration. Their reaction to this has just justified all of them. In one moment, all of their responses, from Trump to Kash Patel, they have justified every single and I know people will probably look at this and be like, they've done a million other things to justify them. Sure, and that's fair. But this specific situation, I think, is a breaking point, and it has justified all those criticism. I think people's antennas are way up, and people's antennas that were not up initially.
Right, and with all that, you had people kind of seeing this as Andrew kind of conceding that Trump's critics, the people who were sounding the alarms for years, they may have been right all along, or at least they were right on this issue. That ends up being a big deal, not only because his podcast is pretty big, but because Andrew had Trump on his podcast leading up to the 2024 election. So that's also why you're seeing a lot of mixed reactions to Andrew's comments here. You some celebrating that anyone who may have supported Trump, they're seeing the light, though others are frustrated that Andrew propped Trump up and now he kind of wants to walk it back. And I will say, you actually had his co-host Charlemagne pushing on that front.
Did you not believe Trump would do any of the things that he said he was going to do because you didn't know, or because you believed in the guardrails of America?
I believe in the guardrails of America. There are a lot of things that he ran on, right, that were very seductive, that seemed possible, it seemed very doable. And backtracking on these things.
All of this, it does feel like it's sitting on a conversation, debate where it's seeing play out at all levels. Whether it's personal or private, or Saturday Night Live, they just did a sketch about this kind of thing over the weekend. We just have 10 toes down. Trump supporters have been, the MAG movement has been, some refer to it as cult. The idea that even a small part of it might be changing their minds, it feels like a big deal. But also, you've got plenty of people still feeling angry, not trusting these changes of heart, and wanting to just kind of scream, "We told you so." And then there's even more we've got to dive into in just a minute. But first, let me thank a sponsor and say, be honest. Are you still landing in another country and immediately sprinting to find Wi-Fi like it's the final level of a video game? Because if you do, stop. Today's sponsor,
Bombomini
Saley,
Gusini.
it's your new travel essential. Saley is an eSIM app that lets you get mobile data in 200 plus destinations without dealing with physical SIM cards, roaming fees, or airport kiosk chaos. You download the app once, you pick your plan, install the eSIM, and you're connected the moment you land. You're good to order an Uber, open maps, text people, translate menus instantly, while everyone else is still begging airport Wi-Fi to load. And Saley keeps working across countries, especially if you use their regional or local phones. One eSIM, multiple destinations. And it's not just convenience. Saley has built-in security features like ad blocking and web protection, which help you avoid sketchy pop-ups and fake networks. And if your phone isn't eSIM compatible, they offer a full refund, which is rare and appreciated. So just scan that QR code on the screen or use code Phil at checkout to get 15% off your Saley data plan. Yeah, scan that QR code or just download the Saley app and use code Phil and get connected before your next trip. But then, diving right back into the news, Bill and Hillary Clinton have now caved to Republican demands that they testify before Congress on Jeffrey Epstein, but also Trump's DOJ has continued to insist that the case is closed even as millions of files remain unreleased. Starting with the Clintons, this actually goes back to July when you had House Democrats on the House Oversight Committee forcing a vote to subpoena the DOJ for its files regarding the investigation into Epstein. And the committee also voted for additional subpoenas against the Clintons, 8 former top law enforcement officials, and Ghislaine Maxwell, who's currently serving a 20-year sentence on sex trafficking charges in connection to her role recruiting girls on Epstein's behalf and facilitating his abuse. Now, Maxwell, she's scheduled to be deposed on February 9th, and only one person, former Attorney General William Barr, has already appeared to testify. Also, the Republican chair of the Oversight Committee, James Comer, has withdrawn the subpoenas for 5 former attorneys general who wrote in statements to the panel that they had no knowledge relevant to the investigation. You also had the committee excusing former FBI directors James Comey and Robert Mueller from giving live depositions. But one, Comer refused to excuse the Clintons, although they repeatedly offered to provide the same kind of sworn statement others had provided, and two, he also falsely accused them of ignoring the subpoenas, despite their attorney sending multiple letters trying to work something out. Now, that said, Comer has been absolutely right when he claimed that the Clintons have been trying to find a way out of testifying. They were originally scheduled to speak with the committee way back in October 2005, but then those sessions got delayed until December and then pushed back again to January after the Clintons said that they would attend the funeral, and then the Clintons told the committee that they wouldn't participate in the rescheduled closed-door depositions at all. And this, even as Comer had threatened to kick off the process to hold them in contempt of Congress, which is punishable by up to a year in prison, as well as a fine of up to $100,000. And in fact, we've seen this play out before. Trump allies Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro, for example, they both served 4-month sentences after being found in contempt of Congress in 2021 for defying a subpoena issued by the committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Though, I will say, notably, not every witness who defies a congressional subpoena is referred for contempt. Republican Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio, for example, he was among the Republican members of Congress who received a subpoena as part of the Jan 6 investigation, but he refused to cooperate. And then, of course, also when Trump was subpoenaed, he sued to try to block it, and the committee eventually withdrew the subpoena. And as far as the Clintons, their lawyers have argued that the subpoenas that they received are legally invalid, saying that this is nothing more than a ploy to attempt to embarrass political rivals as President Trump has directed. But then, after they failed to show up for their most recently scheduled depositions, the Oversight Committee passed resolutions to move forward with holding them in contempt. And notably, you had 9 of the committee's 21 Democrats joining Republicans in support of the charges against Bill, and 3 even supported the measures against Hillary Clinton. So with all that, you then had the Clintons agreeing to testify. But first, they said that
Burrito
certain conditions
bandito.
would need to be met, including 1, the interview needs to be limited in scope to matters related to the investigations and prosecutions of Epstein, 2, that each session would be no more than 4 hours long, and 3, that Bill Clinton be
Los
allowed to bring his
quesadillas.
own transcriber. Then, we saw was Comer reject that offer, and last night, the House Rules Committee met to start the process required to bring the contempt vote to the House floor. But then, you had the attorneys for the Clintons emailing Comer and saying that
Brunito
they would agree to
Marcito.
his demands, with a spokesperson adding on Twitter, they negotiated in good faith, you did not. They told you under oath what they know, but you don't care. The former president and former Secretary of State will be there. They look forward to setting a precedent that
Goat.
applies to everyone. So with that, the contempt proceedings have been put on hold, but they also haven't been called off, with Comer saying in a statement, Clinton's counsel has said they agreed to terms, but those terms lack clarity yet again, and they have provided no dates for
Tung
the
tung tung
deposition. To
sahur.
clarify the terms they are agreeing to, and then discuss next steps with my committee members. And then you also had Speaker Mike Johnson saying today that the Clintons would have until noon to provide details of how they plan to comply with the subpoenas if they didn't want the contempt vote to move forward. So we'll have to see where this goes, but it does seem unlikely that any new information would actually come out of in-person testimony. Neither Clinton has actually been accused of any wrongdoing in connection to Epstein, and both have said that they don't know anything relevant to the committee's investigation. But what we do know is that Clinton was definitely acquainted with Epstein, though he is believed to have cut off contact with him 2 decades ago, and there's no evidence that he's ever visited Epstein's island. That said, he did take 4 international trips on Epstein's private jet in 2002 and 2003, according to flight log, and he's also appeared in Epstein-related photographs released by Congress and the DOJ, including showing him Epstein, another showing him in a two others showing him on a private
Los
plane in a
Trios.
hot tub alongside a woman or girl whose face is redacted. And as far as Hillary, there's no known connection to Epstein besides through her husband, right? And their lawyer has said that she had no
Lucky
personal
block.
knowledge of Epstein or Maxwell's criminal activities, never flew on his aircraft, never visited his island, and cannot recall ever speaking to Epstein. Now, with all that said, as far as what else we're seeing with this latest Epstein Files release, we're seeing continued backlash about
Lucky
what
block.
wasn't released, and also the way the whole thing's been handled. Right, as we've talked about, you had survivors understandably outraged after the files appeared to expose the names of at least 43 of them, along with there being dozens of unredacted nude images. Where the DOJ actually leaving all of that unredacted initially, even while taking the time
Cicleteira,
apparently to black out
bicicleteira.
significant chunks of the files for no apparent reason. And that's actually why you had Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey arguing that the redactions appear to not comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which requires that no document be withheld or redacted based on embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. And all of that as you have Democrats
Lucky
now
block.
accusing the DOJ of breaking the law by continuing to withhold as much as 50% of the files, even though we're now well over 50% number. Deputy AG explained that by saying that the department had initially found 6 million pages of documents identified as potentially responsive. And he said that they erred on the side of over-collection of materials from various sources to best ensure maximum transparency. And then with that, he said that the number of responsive connected, which is why only around 3.5 million pages were released. You've also, I'll say, had Blanche appearing on Fox News, doubling down on his assertion that the release of these files means
Any chance that any of these individuals who partied with Epstein and engaged in relations with minors would be prosecuted? Any chance?
I'll never say no, and we will always investigate any evidence of misconduct. But as you know, it is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein, and really horrible came out with Mr. Epstein. And some of these men may have done horrible things, and if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will.
And there, I will say he is technically right. It is not technically a crime to party with Epstein, and it doesn't seem like anything in the files, at least so far, would be enough to prosecute that. Fun, especially on the timing of the conversations and relationship, it would show that person's character and judgment, right? Whether they should be in positions of power, people to work with, around children. This is a precautionary. Two, many saying that having parties with Epstein or the other things we've learned in the files, it's a reason to keep on. And that's actually a point you had John Stewart really hammering home on the Daily Show.
They've been on the plane. They've been on the plane. They've been to his house. They've given him creepy art and pubic hair. They've been accused by a multitude of women of a multitude of wrongdoings, and nothing has happened to any of them.
Also,
Lucky block.
Stewart connecting this with a broader political situation, especially the Trump administration's efforts to crack down on immigration.
It's pretty clear to me that there is a sanctuary city in this country. But guess what? This kid don't live in it. The real sanctuary city is where money and power protect you from the consequences of sex trafficking, or influence peddling, or taking $500 million and giving away America's AI infrastructure. Not the small Midwestern city where trying to help a lady get up after she gets maced gets you shot in the back of the f***ing head. That's the real sanctuary city. And these are the motherfuckers who live there. Give me the right one. Yeah.
And included in Stewart's version
Coco
of the Sanctuary
Fanto
City
Elefante.
is everyone from Bill Clinton to Bill Gates and Steve Bannon and Elon Musk, and of course right at the tip or the top, Donald Trump. And with Trump, you had him defending himself in a post on Truth Social writing. Unlike so many people that like to talk trash,
Lucky
I
block.
never went to the infested Epstein Island, but almost all of these crooked Democrats and their donors. But then also, notably, at the same time as he was implying that his political opponents might be involved in Epstein's crimes, he also suggested that releasing more documents or investigating further, it would just be a waste of time, guys.
The DOJ, I think, should just say, we have other things to do.
And interestingly, we've also seen similar inconsistencies from Elon Musk. Right ever since the latest files appear to show that he was just blatantly lying about refusing to go to Epstein's island, and that he in fact emailed Epstein multiple times about visiting, even asking when the wildest party would be. Musk, he's been trying to shift attention to Democratic mega donor Reid Hoffman, posting pages from the file showing that the fellow billionaire visited the island. And you have Musk actually claiming that nobody has fought for full release of Epstein files and prosecutions of those who abused children more than he did. To be fair, he did call for their release several times in the past, especially after he claimed in a post last year that Trump was in the Epstein files, and that was actually the real reason they hadn't been made public. But that is a post he has since deleted, and he's really tried to ingratiate himself more with the administration again. And now you have him sharing a post claiming that the major takeaway tweets, but hated Donald Trump. So that's been one argument that Trump supporters have tried to use to say that the files actually prove Trump's innocent. But one, if you actually go through so many of these files, that is not what these files show. Two, I'll say it's also disheartening that in the United States it feels like there's really no accountability outside of like a CBS News contributor, but outside of the United States, like there are a number of people having to resign or being kicked out. Three, what it seems like a lot of Trump's defenders don't realize is the people out there that are really pushing for justice, they want anyone, Democrats or Republicans, to be prosecuted or held accountable depending on how they were involved or what they were doing. I'll say it.
Lucky block.
Merrick Garland, I think, was very slow, very kind of worthless, and then in came this Trump administration, fighting
Steamy ham.
entire time. So that's why I feel like I have to repeat myself constantly, whether it be this or a number of other situations. It should be less about left versus right and elites versus everyone else. But then, actually, the final thing we need to talk about today is
Quesadilla crocodile.
Lucky Paris headquarters as part of an investigation into a slew of crimes, including child sexual abuse imagery and Holocaust imagery. And they actually also summoned Elon Musk to answer questions in the case. Now, of course, this is obviously coming as X and Grok have been facing a ton of international
Lucky
guidelines
block.
for sexual deepfakes on the platform. But France's investigation actually started over a year ago. The prosecutors were first looking into issues with X's algorithm and allocating data, but the investigation widened to look at a total of 7
Lucky block.
offenses. So the authorities are alleging that CSA images started increasing last year after X blew back protection rules resulting in fewer images being flagged. Authorities also pointed to issues with anti-Semitism, which isn't a surprising thing. I mean, we all saw Grok.
Lucky block.
Grok has also been accused of denying the Holocaust by claiming that gas chambers in Auschwitz were designed for disinfection with Zyklon B against typhus, not mass murder. One of the biggest things here is that France has some of the strictest Holocaust denial laws in the world. So that's why today France's cybercrime unit,
Lucky block.
searched its offices, the country's prosecutor's office, also
Lucky
seized
block.
X account announcing the raid, and witnesses with the lawmaker whose complaint opened up its investigation. In Europe, and particularly in France, the rule of law means that no one can break the law, and that European regulations, like transposed into French law, are binding on everyone. And, leading into this, last year you had X responding to this investigation by calling it politically motivated, denying any wrongdoing, claiming that the probe is undermining X's fundamental right to the process and threatens our users' right to privacy and speech. Well, so far, at least as of recording this, Musk
Lucky
himself
block.
hasn't publicly addressed
Lucky
the
block.
raid. This
Lucky
morning on
block.
X, he did respond to
Los
a
lucky
general
blocks.
crackdown in Europe,
Los
saying
lucky blocks. Los
tolerance
lucky
of
blocks.
censorship. All of that is he's facing
Mi gatito.
summons for questioning, as is former CEO Linda Yaccarino. Reports also noting that this comes as European governments and American tech companies have been at odds for a while now as Europe views free speech and claims to be stricter ideas of how social media platforms are regulated. But as you had the New York Times,
Los trios.
prerogative necessary to
Oh, din, 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 dun.
use. Then adding the Trump administration sees the fines as an unfair money grab from American companies and considers regulations to be an attack on free speech. And actually, on that note, France isn't the only country to crack down on X. Today, you also have the Information Commissioner's Office in the UK announcing a formal investigation into X on the processing
Quesadilla crocodile.
charges filed in France. We'll have to keep an eye on where this investigation goes, and it must actually directly respond to the summons.
Beikuru and Eguru. Los móviles. Esoxécola. Los tralaleritos. O din 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 dun. Chicleteira bicicleteira. Pakramat mama.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos.
Eviladon. Lucky block.
All you can eat, lettuce and shells, cheese and meat.
Lucky block. Lucky block. Lucky block. Lucky block. Lucky block.
It's raining tacos
Lucky block.
from out of the sky.
Lucky block.
No need to ask why. Just open your mouth and
Lucky
close
block.
your eyes. It's
Lucky block.
tacos.
Lucky block.
Street tacos. All you can eat. Lettuce and shells. Cheese and meat. It's raining tacos. Yum, 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 yum. It's like a treat. Yum, 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 yum. Bring your sour cream. It's raining tacos. Raining tacos. Raining tacos. It's raining tacos. It's raining tacos. Raining It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos. Out in the street, tacos. All you
Lucky block.
cheese and meat.
Giraffa celeste. Lucky block.
It's raining tacos. Raining tacos.
Arcado Pos.
Pobre mi gatito, alguien le ha pegado por comelonjito. Ahora está llorando. Pobre mi gatito, alguien le ha pegado por comelonjito. Ahora está llorando. Ay, mi gatito, miau, miau. 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 Ay, mi gatito, miau, miau.
Lucky block.
Miau, miau. Ay, mi gatito, ay, mi gatito, ay, mi gatito, miau, miau. Ay, mi gatito, ay, mi gatito, ay, mi gatito, miau, miau. Ay, mi gatito, ay, mi gatito, ay, mi gatito.
Chill pop.
Se comió la carne, se comió el pescado, se comió todito, nada me ha dejado. Se comió la carne, se comió el pescado, se comió todito, nada me ha quedado. Pobre mi gatito, alguien le ha
Cocofanto elefanto. Tralalita tralala. Corn sahur. Lucky block. 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 Beikuru and Eguru. Aquanaut.
Y un rato lo sacrifican. Ya murió la cucaracha. Ya la llevan a enterrar. Entre cuatro pilotes. Y un rato lo sacrifican. Ya no puede caminar. Falta la patica principal. La cucaracha. Ya no puede caminar. Porque no tiene, porque le falta la patica principal.
La vacca Saturno Saturnita. Lucky block. Quesadilla crocodila. Ballerino Lololo. Beikuru and Eguru. Beikuru and Eguru. Beikuru and Eguru. Mi gatito. Giraffa celeste. Trippi troppi troppa trippa.